Cool. One of the things that we wanted to focus on this year is adulting. The reason why, it's because a lot of us, we're not very good at it. Why do I say that? Have you looked at the news? Have you looked at a lot of the bad things that are happening in our lives and the world around us? And we see that, and we go. A lot of times we do adulting really badly, or really poorly, or we don't do it in the way that God wants us to do it. And so because of that, we have problems. So we said, hey, if we want to make any impact in our families or in our community or anywhere else, we need to start doing adulting God's way. Okay, we need to become adults that God wanted us to be or wants us to be. So what we started studying was the fruits of the Spirit, right? Because if we have more love in our lives, we're going to be much better, and we're going to be making impact in our community and in our families. Last week we went over joy, and same thing. If we had more joy in our lives, hey, imagine what a happier place this world will be, right? Today we're going to be going over peace. All right. So we're going to do an activity to help you with this idea of peace. So close your eyes. Close your eyes really quickly. All right. Close your eyes and think about something, either this week, this month, this year, something that has been really, really, really been stressing you out. Okay? Think about that thing, whether it was this week, it was really, really stressful, gave you a lot of anxiety, or maybe it was this month, maybe it comes from your work, or school, or the person sitting next to you, okay? All right. Now, that thought, now I want you to transfer that thought, if it's in the brain, and I want you to transfer it to one of your arms, or one of your hands, okay? Transfer it to one of your hands. Okay, if it's too big in one hand, you could have it in both of your hands. Okay, and I want you to hold tightly onto that. Okay, so like make a fist and hold on to that. Okay, you guys can open your eyes when your problem is in your hand. Is your problems, your anxieties in your hand now? Yeah? No? Kind of? Okay, cool. Hold on to that. Now, most pastors are going to say, hey, throw that away because it's the Sabbath. You need to throw that away. But today, hey, since we're talking about peace, hold on to that. Hold on to that thing. And I want you to see if what we're going to talk about today is actually going to help you to actually let go of that. Okay? So let's do it together. Now, we know that opposite of peace is what you guys are holding on to, which is anxiety. And this is what Paul talks about. Paul says, hey, don't be anxious about anything. Well, easy for Paul to say, right? He's just saying, hey, I have all these problems, but just don't worry about it. No, it doesn't work like that, right? But he continues on. But in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. He continues on. And there's two things we're going to learn from these quick passages. This is what he says. Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every situation, I have learned the secret of facing plenty of hunger, abundance, and need. But still, he says, I have this peace. I have this poise. I have this calmness. I have this equilibrium that nothing's going to take away. So, a couple of things. Number one, first thing he talks about, he says, whatever the situation it is, okay? And some of you guys still holding on to your problems? Whatever the situation or the problems I might have, according to Paul, he's saying, guess what? I have learned how to be in poise, in this equilibrium, and nothing's going to phase me out. He's saying, whatever circumstances. He doesn't say, hey, in good circumstances, I can let go. Have perfect peace. He doesn't say that. He says, in every circumstances, when my relationship is not working out, when I have bills to pay, when my kids are not listening to me, when I have no idea where I'm going to go. Every circumstances, he says, I know how to have that peace. Now, one thing really interesting here, what does he say? Because some of you guys think that this is something that some people just have and some people just don't have. Right? It's kind of like a talent. You know, like some people, they're just more chill than other people. Right? Like you walk around just with a lot of anxiety. Like everything just freaks you out. Right? Like a spider and you're like, "Oh, you freak out." But there's other people, it just seems like nothing really phases them out. Right? And so, is that what Paul is saying here? He's saying, "Hey, you know what? Even when I came out of the womb, I wasn't even crying. I wasn't even sweating it. I was just like, cool, man. Hey, man. Hey, new world, what's up? I'm cool. I'm chill." Is that what he's saying here? No, he doesn't. What does he say? He says, I have learned this. And he says the same thing over in verse 12 as well. He says, I have learned the secret of having this equilibrium, having this poise, having this calmness. So what does that mean for you? What does that mean for me? That means even if you are the most anxious person in here and everything, even like a dust particle freaks you out, guess what? You can learn it. Why? Because Paul doesn't say this is a natural thing. This is not his natural inclination. No, this is something that can be learned. So you guys, me included, we could all learn. So, you guys still holding on to your problems? Got it? Perfect. Unless you don't have problems, then you could totally zone out and go on your Facebook and stuff like that. But if you have issues, hey, we got something we can learn today. All right? Cool. So these are the two things he says that we must do if we want to have this poise, this calmness, this like, whatever gets in my way, nothing's gonna drown me or sink me. It's kind of like let me give you one more example. I wanted to give this example and I almost forgot. It's kind of like Paul. Like if you know his life, like for example, like most of us, what are we worrying about? We worry about bills, relationships. Okay. And those things, I mean, we should worry about these things, right? But Paul, you know what he was actually, like the stuff that he was going through? He was actually going through like persecution and like death, which means like nothing compared to what we're actually going through. But still, again, this guy's like, it's okay. There's this, one of his things he says, I forgot where it's in, but he talks about like his whole life and he talks about how he was beaten, he was whipped, he was like shipwrecked, like so many, everything that bad that could have happened to this guy, it basically happened. But still, he's like, I'm okay. It's kind of like one example I could give is like, it's kind of like I feel like if you could encapsulate his life and put it into one word, it's this idea of like buoyancy. Right? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? If you got some little kids, big kids, if you don't know that word, it's kind of, imagine like a life jacket. And it's like, no matter how much you like try to push it down, yeah, if like something really heavy is pushing down upon it, you're not going to see it. But it always comes back up. It always just comes back up. It's like nothing got through to this guy. Like life did not break this guy. Again, how do we get that? Let's go into it, okay? I know you guys are holding on to your problems, so let's go into it. Two things he says. And both of them starts with TH, so you guys can remember it easier, okay? It's going to be thinking and thinking. Okay, pretty easy, right? Thinking and thinking. What do I mean by that? Let's look at it. He says, Right there. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, pure, lovely, commendable, excellent. Think about these things. So, do you want more peace in your life? Do you want to let go of your problems? Then think about whatever is true, honorable, just, pure, lovely. Okay, what is Paul talking about here? Okay? When Paul talks about these things, what he's really talking about is doctrines. Okay? When Paul says, think about these things, what he's really talking about are doctrines. Now, you hear that word and you're like, what? What do you mean by doctrines? Doctrines meaning heaven, earth, God, salvation, meaning of life, and these kind of things. And now, you guys are thinking, wait a minute. I feel like if I thought about those things, that would actually give me a headache. That would actually not free me from my problems that I have, but actually give me more problems, right? And so, what do you mean, Paul? Like, think about these things. Because, okay, this is really, really countercultural, and this is very different from what the world really teaches us about how to get rid of like problems, or you want to be less anxious, these kind of things. You walk into, now we don't go to Barnes and Nobles anymore, but you go to Amazon and you order those like, hey, how to have more peace in your life, these kind of books. What they're going to tell you is what? Hey, you need to stop thinking about these things so much, right? What they're going to teach you is like relaxation techniques, like how to breathe, how to like have this time, how to have more positive thinking, right? You got to let go of these negative thoughts, kind of like what we talked about last week, like Buddhism, right? This idea that, hey, all these attachments that you have all these things, and it's ruining your life, so basically let go of them. So I'm going to teach you how to let go. Let go of your worries, let go of your pain. So you have these problems, just open them up and let it just kind of go. Okay, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is it doesn't solve anything. What does it solve? What, you let it go, you don't think it's going to come back? What, you let it go and all of a sudden you think your marriage is going to be fine? You think your kids are going to start listening to you? You think your boss is going to be okay? No, just letting go of stuff, it doesn't work. That's what we call being children and not facing your responsibility. So what do? Instead, Paul tells us, think about these things. Okay, how does thinking about doctrines like Jesus and these kind of things, how would that help me? Okay, so think about this. Doctrines. What is the doctrine? What is the Christian doctrine? Think about it. This is the Christian doctrine, and I'm going to keep it short, which is there is God in this universe. And this God is a loving God who created every single one of us. And He has provided us with the most perfect home, most perfect condition, where there is no sorrow, no pain, no gain, none of these things. But something wrong happened, something bad happened. And now, because of that, we're living in this world full of sin, full of death, full of sorrow, full of cancer, these bad things happening to us. But even though we're in this mess, God actually doesn't just abandon us or destroy us or start over, but He actually sends His Son to come down and save these really messy people, us. And because of that, hey, even though we're living in sin, we're living in mess, there's actually hope. There's actually something to look forward to. Now, how's that going to give you peace? Think about it. Think about these things and think about the problems that you guys are holding on to. Okay? Some of you guys, for example, are carrying around guilt. Some of you guys, you feel like you're not good enough. You're not doing enough stuff. Some of you guys, you feel like, Pastor, I keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. But Paul says, I think about these things, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just. Okay. Does that make sense? When you see that God still loves you, and that God comes down, and there's actually hope for this universe and our lives, and you see your problem, it doesn't look that big anymore. It's not as big as you thought. You can actually let some of these things go. Because what the alternative is this. This is not my words, but this is actually an atheist philosopher, Bertrand Russell, and he basically says this. He says, hey, there's a reason why our, popular psychology, these books, it doesn't tell us to think. It actually tells us to just let go and don't think anything. This is the reason why. This is what he says. He says, such an outline, but even more purposeless, more void of meaning is the world which science presents for our belief. He says, hey, if you don't believe in God, which is fine, you want to believe in evolution and all that stuff, no problem. But you have to understand the implications. He says, there's nothing much. This is what he says. That man is the byproduct of causes which has no provision of the end they were achieving. That his origin, his growth, his hopes, his fears, his loves, his beliefs are nothing but an outcome of accidental collocation of atoms. So basically, everything that we love, everything that we feel, all this, come on, we're just random things here. Not my words, his words. Okay? He continues on and he says, no heroism, no intensity of thought, feeling can preserve an individual life beyond the grave. All the labors of the ages, all the devotion, all the inspiration, all the noonday brightness of human geniuses are destined to extinction in the vast death of the solar system. And the whole temple of man's achievement must inevitably be buried beneath the debris of the universe in ruins. Wow. What is he saying? No God? What's the meaning of our lives? I mean, you can make your own meaning. You could say, yada, 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 I'm having fun. This is great. But what? So what? It achieves to nothing. It amounts to nothing. Why? Because we're all random beings here and we're all going to die anyways. What's the point? Now, again, do you see why a lot of psychology books and popular pop psychology, these things, why it tells you to let go and not think? Why? Because if you actually think about the big things of life, what's the meaning of my life? Where do I go after I die? You actually get more depressed. Why? Because there's nothing. What hope do I have? What purpose am I living with? But instead, Christianity, Paul is saying, is different. He's saying, when you are anxious, when you are nervous about life, think about the big things. Why? Because these are the things that's going to give you hope. These are going to be the things that are going to give you freedom. So, what Paul really is saying is, hey, there's this kind of peace where it's like stupid peace, and there's this kind of peace where it's actually smart peace. Okay, what do I mean by that? All right, so stupid peace would be something like this. It'd be like, where do I have it? I wrote it somewhere here. It's kind of like, I don't even know where it is. Somewhere around here. Okay, so it's like stupid peace is kind of like, ho, 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 to the bottle I go, right? To drown my woe, right? It's kind of like, I mean, I'm not going to think. I'm just going to drink my way. I'm just going to go on a vacation, not think about anything in life. Right? That's the stupid kind of peace where you go, I'm not going to think about anything. I'm just going to relax. I'm just going to go on my life, living my life as though there is nothing, but I'm just going to make stuff up as I go. And if I die, I'll just die. That's it. That's a stupid kind of peace. But he's saying, hey, there is smart kind of peace, where stupid peace says, no, you need to bracket out this stuff. Bracket out, bracket out. In Christianity, what smart peace is saying, hey, you need to bracket in. You need to think about what the real important things in life is. When you think about Jesus, when you think about salvation, when you think about how you have freedom in Jesus, that's what's going to give you peace. So, smart peace is not thoughtlessness. It's thoughtfulness. There's thought behind the peace that we can gain from Jesus. And this is what Paul is saying. He's not just saying, okay, I just prayed a prayer. I just said, Jesus, give me peace. And he just like sat on his like jail or getting beat up. And he's like, okay. No, as he's getting beat up, what is he thinking about? He's thinking, hey, the suffering that I'm going through, it's momentary. They're beating me up. They're chasing me. So what? I got so much more in store for me. And he's saying, that's why he says the weight of glory. The weight, the amount of glory I will get at the end of my life, it tells nothing. All of this suffering, all of this pain, it means absolutely nothing. That's what's going to give us peace. So think about it. So you got problems. You got issues. I do too. All of us, we got issues. Don't just let it go. It's just going to walk right back. What Paul is saying is, no, you got to think. You got to think about these. You got to think about God. You're able to let go of some of these things. All right, second. So first one, again, what is it? It's thinking. Second one, it's going to be thinking. Okay, let's see it. Verse 6 tells us, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Now, again, you guys probably look at it and you go, nothing really unique, cool. But there's actually something really, really cool about this. Okay, because we don't actually do this. What Paul actually says is, he says, as you are praying about stuff, okay, he also says, thank God at the same time. Okay, it doesn't say, okay, what it doesn't say is, okay, pray, supplication, and then when you feel peace in your life, then pray, or then thank God. No, it doesn't say that, right? What does it say? It says, when you're praying, thank God. What does that mean? That means, okay, for us, it doesn't make sense for us because we go, oh no, things has to be good. Things has to be good. God has to do it my way. He has to listen to my prayers. Then I can thank God. Then I will have peace with God. But he says, no, I'm going to trust that whatever happens in my life, that I can still give thanks to God. Does that make sense? So he's basically, as he's praying, he's already trusting that whatever happens, that God will still bring goodness out of the situation. Okay, so for example, Romans 8:28, very famous passage. He says, for God will bring all good things. Even he's talking about suffering and pain. He will bring all of these things together to bring goodness for us. Okay, that's a bad rendition of mine. Read it. It's much more beautiful than that. But the idea is, hey, whatever bad happens in your life, no matter what, even if your prayer, God doesn't answer your prayer, you know what? Paul's saying, I have trust that God knows what he's doing. And I'm still going to thank him no matter what the circumstances are, no matter how dark the situation is. Now, best example of this is the cross. Okay? Imagine if you're a disciple of Jesus and you're looking at the cross. For you, that day, that is the worst thing that could ever happen to you. You're looking at that and you're saying, this is 3.5 years of my life. I've gave up everything for this project. I invested all my money into this. And he is dying on the cross. I'm thinking, how could anything good come out of this? How could it benefit me? This is the worst thing that could ever happen in my life. But as we know, God was able to bring the greatest good, the greatest amount. It was the most important event in history. But again, with our small brains, we look at it and we go, what? When God is saying, no, this is exactly what I had in mind. And again, it's the same that we can experience, every single one of us. We go through times of darkness, when situation is not right, when things are not working out. But again, we can still thank God. Why? Because we know that God is a good God. Right? So, but again, one thing really important here, I'm not saying, right, because there's people who say, well, Jesus purposely or God purposely puts you in dark places so that you can learn. No, I'm not saying that, okay? But what I'm trying to say is, despite the bad circumstances, the suffering in our lives, do you believe that God can actually bring goodness out of those situations? And that's why Paul is saying, I can thank God. You think he's thanking God because, yeah, I'm in prison? No, he's saying, despite the situation that I'm facing in my life, I'm still going to thank God. Why? Because I trust that God's going to bring me out through all of this. Now, again, and this is why thinking and thanking, these things go hand in hand, right? Because you can't just thank God without just thank you, thank you, thank you. No, there has to be thought behind it. There has to be thinking behind it. We can thank God because of what he has done, right? Again, right? This is important. That's why you must think. You must think. Now, I'm talking to Christians here. Christians, are you experiencing peace in your life? Because Christians, I'm talking to Christians. If you're not a Christian, hey, don't worry about it. Christians, you are offered this peace. What are you waiting for? You have this tool in front of you where eternal peace is offered unto you. Your life is not hopeless. Your life is not without love or security or identity. You have all of these things that you find in Jesus. Christians, if you are not finding peace in your life, it is because you are not thinking. And it is because you are not thinking. Instead, you're living a very, very thoughtless life. Ho, ho, ho. To the bottle I go. Let's end with this. You know what he says at the end of all of this stuff? It's really, really, really practical. Because, a lot of you guys think, oh, Bible's so impractical. It's so abstract. Like, what am I supposed to do? But no, Bible is really practical, guys. And you know what he says? He says this. He says, not that. He does not say that. Can you go back to the slide, Peter? Here, I'll control it now. Okay. He says this. Oh, not this. He says this. Oh, not that. This. Okay. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, he says what? Practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. Okay. I think this is so, so, so important, guys. Again, I'm talking to Christians. Christians, if you're listening, Christians. A lot of us, we just want easy stuff. We just think, like a lot of us, we think, I'm just gonna pray and ta-da! Like my life is gonna be like absolutely fine and everything's gonna be okay. Like we need to stop that. We need to stop like that kind of like easy, simple, like pop Christian, like, hey, you need more peace? Just hey, just do this, say these things. No. Paul is saying these are things I have learned. What does that mean? These are things I have practiced. These are things I am being mindful of. These are not just things that happen just because you prayed once. Okay, just because you come to church once a week. This is something that comes if you practice it. So what does this mean? Okay, I'll just give you one example and I'll end. We can either listen to our heart or talk to our hearts. A lot of times we're listening to our hearts. We wake up in the morning. What is our heart saying? Gideon, do this, do that. Oh, you forgot about this. Oh, what does that person think about me? My heart is going crazy. And a lot of us, we live like that. And a lot of you, that's why, like, including me, and not just you guys, me, I go to vacation, I do nothing, but it doesn't, like, it stresses me out even more. Why? Because even though, like, physically I'm resting, my heart is going everywhere. There is no rest in my heart because I'm always trying to seek for something else or something. I got to get this. I got to get this. That will satisfy me. It's like a big vacuum, like trying to suck at anything to try to, fulfill that void, right? So I need to stop listening and I need to start talking to my heart. I need to say, stop. Stop it. There is God who can fulfill your heart. So stop. Stop trying to go to people, use your ministry, use your kids, use whatever it is to try to get these things. Stop. So I need to tell myself, I constantly tell myself. Okay, one real example. I'll just give you my example and then we'll end it here, okay? I think I might have shared this in sermon before, but one of the things I came to a point where I was preaching every week because, I'm the only pastor here. And I got to a point where I got so like tired of preaching. Like I got so burnt out. Like after I would preach, I would tell Grace, I'm like, I'm so out of it, Grace. And I realized it's because I value myself based on how I preach. So I go, if I preach well, then I'm worth something. All right? Then I'm going to get, you like, okay, I'll get that. Oh, now it's full. But you see, that brought so much anxiety. Why? Because number one, I want to do well. Number two, if I don't do well, what happens? I'm anxious. I'm like, oh, that was horrible. That sucked. So I crash. So either way, no matter what happened, I was just crashing and burning. And so one of the things that I've learned to do is instead of listening to my heart, before, today I couldn't because I was in Sabbath school, but what I try to do is I try to spend solid 10, 20 minutes before I go up and speak, and I say to God, I'm talking to God, but I'm really speaking to my heart too. I go, Kirin, it's okay. Just stop. You're already filled. Why? Not because of anything you have done, but because of what Jesus has done on the cross. Okay? Stop. Stop trying to do stuff. Okay, if the sermon is great, that's awesome. Why? Because people get to hear the word of God. They get to experience these things. That's great. You know what? If they don't, that's fine. Okay, I mean, it sucks for you guys, but my identity does not change. Why? Because even before we went to God, Jesus already came to me. You see how these things, the big things of life, is actually going to give us peace? Once again, Paul is saying, I have learned this. I have practiced these things. And these things are available to you. What are you waiting for? Grab onto them. Let's go into time of reflection.